Can we listen to all of our voices, Grace Boggs and others, the best of who we are as a species, as a nation, as an imperial experiment, as an imperial democracy? And yet, as my dear sister Marianne said, recognize that there's the best in America that has always understood that if our lives matter, if Black lives matter, we're going to have to make sure that democratic practices and orientations and means of being in the world are reproduced and expanded. If any lives matter, you're going to have major radical democracy. But can you have radical democracy in America without empire, without white supremacy, without male supremacy, without transphobia, without homophobia, without losing sight of the humanity of Muslims and Jews and Arabs? It's an unanswered question. We just don't know.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 15 of Radical Democracy Show. I'm your host, Kamali Rose. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I'm just going to ask you, as always, if you haven't done so already, hit that like button immediately. Just hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. And if it's not too annoying for you, you can also hit the bell and then select all so that you can receive notifications anytime we go live or launch a new video. Just want to start the show off with a thank you to our entire Patreon community for all of your support. Thank you so much to everyone that is all of our Patreon members. You are the lifeblood of the show, and we couldn't do it without you. So thank you so much. If you would like to join our Patreon community, to do so, all you have to do is just head over to patreon.com/radical democracy. We deeply appreciate it. We really need it here in independent media. We're funded by the people. We are by the people, for the people. And in order to keep independent media going, we need your support. So please, if you you can open up the description box. You'll see a link in the description box below. So just open up that description box, hit that link, and subscribe to be a member of our Patreon. Thank you so much. You can also, if you want to, at any point during the show, you can also leave us a one-time tip. You don't have to sign up for an account or anything over at coffee.com/radical democracy. That's ko-fi.com/radical democracy. And you can use that instead of the super chat. We don't have super chat enabled yet. So while we await the monetization on YouTube, and whatever kind of partnership program you need on Twitch in order to do live donations on those platforms, while we await that, while we're growing the channel, we could use your support over on coffee.com. You can just use that. And that's the fastest way to get money to us. If you want to get money direct to us, they don't take anything out of it. It's just the credit card fees and the Stripe processing fees. So Coffee doesn't take anything themselves. Really appreciate that to the folks that built that platform. So please support the show, coffee.com/radical democracy. Today's show is going to be a jam-packed one. Got a lot of stories to get through. So I am going to hop right into it, I say. So let's get going. All right. First up, we have something that should just be a lighthearted, it's not really too lighthearted, actually, let me be real. But a new segment sort of that I want to do, where whenever I just see a kind of weird story that I want to share, I just want to pluck them out and share them. So not my usual sort of topic, but just something weird that I saw. So we'll come up with a name for it. Gee, that's weird. All right. So here we go. In this segment of Gee, that's weird. Let's take a look at this story that I came across. So this is from The Guardian. A man dies after eating bag of licorice every day for a few weeks. So this happened in my home state here. So shout out to my home state for this kind of weirdness here, but we have a Massachusetts construction worker's love of black licorice wound up costing him his life, doctors say. A Massachusetts construction's eating a bag and a half every day for a few weeks threw his nutrients out of whack and caused the 54-year-old man's heart to stop, doctors reported. Quote, even a small amount of licorice you can eat, quote, even a small amount of licorice you eat can increase your blood pressure a little bit, said Dr. Neil Butala, a cardiologist at Massachusetts General Hospital, who described the case in the New England Journal of Medicine. The problem is glyceric acid found in black licorice and in many other foods and dietary supplements and containing licorice root extract. It can cause dangerously low potassium imbalances in other minerals, principally electrolytes. Eating as little as 2 ounces of black licorice a day for 2 weeks could cause a heart rhythm problem, especially for people over the age of 40, the US FDA warns. It's more than licorice sticks. It could be jelly beans, licorice teas, a lot of things over the counter. Even some beers, like Belgian beers, have this compound in it, as do some chewing tobaccos, said Robert Eckel, a University of Colorado cardiologist and former American Heart Association president. And they say the death was clearly an extreme case. The man, who has not been publicly named, let him have his privacy, had switched from red fruit flavored twist to the black licorice version of the candy a few weeks before his death last year. He collapsed while having lunch at a fast food restaurant. Doctors found he had dangerously low potassium, which led to the heart rhythm and other problems. Yeah, that was weird. I hate black licorice. I think it's a disgusting candy. I think it's the worst candy. And so I think this just confirms it for me. So warning to all, avoid black licorice. It's terrible. It tastes terrible and it can kill you apparently. So sorry to this person who's passed. I'm sorry to hear that. That's a terrible way to go. It's certainly, who the hell knew that you could, anything is, too much anything is not good for you. So yeah. All right. Let's keep pushing ahead. Like I said, we got a lot to get to in this show, so we will keep charging ahead here. All right. In our next story, we have a case of sort of it's totally unsurprising here, but Corporation Amazon has an employee has come out and warned that internal groups are being monitored for labor organizing. And so let's take a look at this Motherboard article from Vice. And an Amazon spokesperson confirmed that the company monitors dozens of internal listservs, but said that the program did not exist for the purposes that the employee described. All right, so an Amazon Web Services employee. Amazon Web Services, for those who aren't familiar with it, is pretty much everything is built on Amazon Web Services. Netflix uses Amazon Web Services. The website that I built uses Amazon Web Services. Everybody uses Amazon Web Services. So it's not just Amazon, the website, that is their money-making powerhouse. So an Amazon Web Services employee emailed a series of internal Amazon listservs and told them that their communications were being monitored for labor organizing efforts and processed in a data farming project by the company's global security operations, according to an internal email obtained by Motherboard. The emails were sent, at least, to the employee listservs Indigenous at Amazon.com and Transgender at Amazon.com, and mentioned a handful of other listservs the employee believed were being watched. If you are a moderator or user of this list, please note that it is being explicitly watched by an internal monitoring team, the Amazon Web Services employee wrote to members of at least 2 of the listservs. Quote, this is part of a wider project to generate and curate data on internal employees and external entities, end quote. According to the email, listservs being monitored include Black Employee Network at We Won't Build It at Transgender at Indigenous at Arabs at Persians at Glamazon at Latinos at Colombianos at Asians at Amazon at Coronavirus Volunteers at and dozens of others. So the vast majority of listservs listed by the AWS employee as being monitored are designed for employees from groups who are underrepresented in Silicon Valley. We Won't Build It refers to a listserv of employees who are against Amazon working with ICE, among other government entities. The AWS employee noted that not all Amazon listservs were monitored this way, and they specifically noted that Christians at is not monitored, while Muslims at is monitored. An Amazon spokesperson said that it monitors groups based on their size and activity, not their content. The spokesperson said that the company uses several methods to gather feedback at scale, which includes, quote, anonymized feedback that is sometimes shared from these open email forums. It is, end quote. It is not surprising that companies have access to corporate email. However, not all companies proactively monitor employee emails as Amazon says it does. The spokesperson said the Amazon Web Services employee inaccurately described the program's intention and vision in their email to the listservs and clarified that the monitor listservs were selected based on their activity level and size. Amazon did not respond to a question from Motherboard about whether all listservs were monitored, whether Christians at was being monitored, and whether employees who are part of those listservs were made aware that they were being monitored. The Amazon Web Services employee notes that this data was being used to track Whole Foods market activism / unionization efforts, internal communications, social listening, presence of local union chapters and alt labor groups, presence of community organizations, union officials, and social influencers. Motherboard was unable to specifically verify this. So, I mean, this here is totally unsurprising. The thing is, I hope that this doesn't need to be said to anyone here, but if you're trying to unionize, please don't use company communication channels to do it. Open public company community, like even if they're not, I mean, these are listservs, so they're not totally public, right? You have to join the listserv but that's fairly, that's a fairly open communication channel and one that is controlled. Do not use employer controlled communication channels to work on any unionization efforts, please. And I hope that goes without saying, folks. So you just can't, you should be under the assumption that your employer is monitoring those channels and should never be using that for any real, you're risking being targeted and retaliated against. And we know that the laws just don't, the power lies in the hands of the employer, not the employees. And so you just have to be extra careful, and please use private, third-party communication channels. Check out Signal. I think Telegram is another one. And, look at secure communication channels that are external to the company that you work for. Person to person is obviously ideal with folks that are friendly to unionization efforts, but you should I think it goes without saying, do not use your employer controlled communication channel. So what was happening here is still terrible. It's still, it's a gross practice by Amazon, but let's be real, it's going to be totally legal for them to do this sort of thing. It's not like they're breaking the law in any way. It's just, an invasion of people's privacy, essentially. But I honestly, when I heard it, it was kind of like, really, y'all, you didn't think that that was happening already? I mean, it's their listserv. So yeah, just be super careful with that. I think it's a terrible practice. It's evil, it's awful, but it's what we have to be expecting on the left. And so if you're going to try to do any sort of unionization efforts, please be wary of that and be careful when you're doing things like that. Just assume you're being monitored. one thing you can do is check out the AFL-CIO website. They have resources. You can contact someone. They will reach out to you if you are trying to unionize. There are people that are very experienced with that. I've worked within a union, but I've never been a part of an effort to unionize a workplace. So, I mean, I've had discussions with people, but nothing more and nothing serious. But I've been a part of a union. I've been a union steward. I was a union steward in a local 1199 when I worked in the healthcare field, when I was a lab assistant, and I was a medical assistant, phlebotomist, and I spent about 5 years in the healthcare field, and also all 5 of those years, I was a member of the local 1199. But for about 3 of those years, I was a union steward, where I was actually there fighting for other union members to, gain whatever benefits and protections that we could for the members of the union. So I've been I've been within unions, I've been in jobs without unions, and I've certainly seen all the great benefits of being within a union. Obviously, what I espouse here, radical democracy. I think that unions don't go far enough. They're not democratic enough, of course. And what we just need is democracy in the workplace, so that there is no employer that's going to be spying on us. It would be all of us. We would all have a say in something like this happening. You're going to vote. All the workers get together and vote. Hey, you want to spy on ourselves, folks? And I think that you'd have an answer to that really quickly. And so, yeah, this is just kind of something that doesn't surprise me, and shouldn't surprise anyone, but it's still gross and deserves to have attention called to it. It's a terrible practice, and it just shows how anti-labor Amazon is. They, just like a lot of these companies, they have all these anti-labor practices, anti-unionization practices. So they're doing their best to run their anti-union, anti-labor propaganda, and to fight every effort to unionize. And so, it's just something that we should point a finger at and say gross, disgusting, terrible, awful. And hopefully these, folks find other channels to. Now, you have to admit, though, it's under pandemic times, it gets even more difficult. And I don't want to put too much. I don't want to sound like I'm putting the onus and the responsibility here on the workers. They're trying their best. I'm sure that's, for a lot of people, it's like, how else are you going to get in touch with all of those people? How else are you going to communicate? I think that's the reality, is that unionization is often difficult because of that. You have to overcome those hurdles. And in a pandemic, I mean, that seriously negatively impacts the ability to unionize. If people just simply, how do people connect and communicate other than through these sort of employer controlled channels? I used Slack when I worked at in the tech industry, and it's just like, you're gonna end up using channels like that. Now, these listservs, you don't expect your private communications to be monitored by your company. Now, that certainly is next level. This is private emails, essentially. What you think is emails that only people within this group are going to be able to see. So it's definitely, that's an invasion of privacy right there that shouldn't be allowed I wish there were protections in place that made this activity illegal. No employer should be able to monitor the private communications of their employees. I think that goes without saying. That just sounds so obvious, but I guess that has to be said. And there used to be, we used to have laws enforced to protect people from things like this and protect workers, but clearly those things have been dismantled in this country. So that's just yet another terrible, awful practice from Amazon, and just another reason to hate them. All right. So going to keep pushing along, because like I said, I got a lot to get to today, and I'm going to try not to do a crazy long stream tonight. I'm going to try to be reasonable about this and try to see what I can pull off for a sort of easy, just a well executed show here. Nothing, trying not to stretch it out too long. Once we meet our watch hour time, like we will try to, I'll try to work to tighten up the time a bit and make it a little bit more concise, and try to have a goal of like 2 hours or something like that each episode max, because I can always go forever and I got a ton of stories to get to. So let's keep pushing along here. And typical student says Amazon spies on workers, LOL. That's some realism right there. Yeah, that's just what it is. We gotta, doesn't surprise me one bit, and we shouldn't be surprised by this. We gotta be. All right, so another story, quick story that I wanted to touch on here is the weekly unemployment numbers have been released once again. They come out every Thursday. They release, the U.S. Department of Labor releases the weekly unemployment claims, as well as the number of continued unemployment claims. And so those numbers have been released, and I just wanted to take a look at it. And so this is an article from Reuters. They say the U.S. labor market slowing as fiscal stimulus fades. The number of Americans filing new claims for unemployment benefits unexpectedly increased last week. Supporting views the economic recovery from COVID-19 pandemic was running out of steam amid diminishing government funding. So let's just check out. Oh, let me actually want to give you a little audio on this video here. So I'm going to come right back to that. One sec. All right, just check out this 1 minute video here about the unemployment numbers.
More signs the economic recovery is losing steam. The number of Americans filing new claims for jobless benefits rose more than expected last week. The Labor Department reported Thursday 870,000 Americans registered for first-time unemployment benefits. That's higher than forecast and an increase from the week before. Economists had been expecting that number to drop. What's more, data for the previous week was revised upward. While claims have plummeted from the record of nearly 6.9 million filed in 1 week at the end of March, they've recently held steady at historically troublesome levels above 800,000, and they remain well above the levels of the Great Recession. Lackluster demand for services has kept layoffs high as job cuts spread to sectors that at first were not hurt by mandated business closures, such as financial services and technology. Next month, tens of thousands of airline workers could be laid off or furloughed unless the White House and Congress come up with another rescue package. Thursday's disappointing report sent stocks and Treasury yields lower at the market open.
Sorry about that little last bit there. But yeah, so you see there the unemployment numbers increase now, and because of the revision to last week's numbers, this now means that this is actually the third straight week that the unemployment claims have not just held steady, but have actually increased slightly. So it's reversing the trend. There had been a steady decline in the unemployment claims. Now this decline, we still have not declined below the absolute worst of the Great Recession. Our weekly unemployment claims are still beating that out by about, we're over, if we were comparing apples to apples with the old numbers, it's about at least 40% more. It's 40% higher than the absolute worst of the Great Recession. So that was 625,000 claims. The absolute record before that was 695,000 claims, and we're still, over 30% higher than that. and this is what we're calling, the best weeks of the pandemic at this point. And so over 870,000 weekly unemployment claims filed. And that number is actually not comparing apples to apples, because they changed the methodology on September 2nd. They've changed the methodology for calculating it. So they, instead of using what they call the seasonally adjusted, the multiplicative factor for it, they use the additive method for it. And that has an effect of, and what's important to note about that is that it has the effect of making the numbers appear to be lower than what they were previously, than the method that was previously calculating them. So it dropped the numbers instantly by over 100,000. And it doesn't mean that there was actually any change in the reality on the ground for people. Nothing changed on the ground for people. It was just that the way that they calculated it changed. And so the numbers, if we were still using that old method of calculation, these numbers would still show an unemployment rate over 1 million, new weekly unemployment claims over 1 million. So we're still at historic levels, and it's actually increasing, which just completely, obliterates the idea that we're in some sort of V-shaped recovery. That notion has to be completely dispelled by now. What we're really seeing is a K-shaped recovery, where the wealthier, because of income inequality, you got, the wealthy people they're doing better. And Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, and I think one other billionaire, increased their wealth by nearly 100 billion over the course of the pandemic. And meanwhile, you got the mass unemployment, people being evicted from their homes. We did a story yesterday that was amazing. We did a story yesterday about an app called Civil that is a new Uber for evictions, and people are getting kicked out of their homes. And we actually had somebody from the company in our chat doing propaganda. We looked it up, and we're pretty confident that we've been able to verify this. This is the actual company that was in our, somebody representing the company was in our chat. Just, they sound like a MAGA chud in our, in the chat there yesterday. And it was just incredible. And so, but we have people being evicted right now, with the help of folks like Civil doing Uber for evictions out here. And so this is, the reality for the masses of people is that things have gotten a lot worse for many people. Just record unemployment, record levels of people unable to make payments on their rent or housing payments. So over a third of Americans for the past 5 months have been unable to pay their full rent. It's nearly 20%, 19% that haven't been able to make any payment at all. So 1 in 5 Americans unable to make any payment on their rent or housing payments. So this is the state of the union here, folks. All right, to everyone that is just joining us, if you haven't done so already, please do me a favor and hit the like button. You can see that like button right down below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And please share this out on social media. Just share it out, hit the share button, send it out whatever social media platforms you're on. If you got a following, share it with some comrades. Let's get some more comrades in here to chat with us. Leave your thoughts in the comments here in the chat, please. If you have any questions, any comments, please leave them in the chat. If you say something interesting, we will chat about it here on the show. So please leave your thoughts there in the comments, in the chat. As always, if you're watching this after we are live, just leave comments leave your thoughts in the comments. And we read every single comment, even if I don't get a chance to respond to it. I definitely read every single comment. So please drop a comment and let me know how you feel. All right. And feel free to ask me anything. If you have any questions, I will try to get to them in between segments as best as I can. So love to hear from the community. And I am reading all your comments in the chat here. Just not necessarily anything that needs to be discussed here. So G. says, wasn't it Kamala Harris family that made millions in the Jamaican slave trade? I cannot confirm that. I have no clue. As Thanatos said, no clue. And so someone could look that up, but I'm not gonna. That sounds a little bit far-fetched, but who knows? I mean, it wouldn't surprise me, but I don't know. I don't know. All right. She's terrible for a million other reasons. We don't need to do conspiracy theories. But if you have a reference for that, if you have some resource that you want to share on that, please go right ahead and do so, and we can check it out. But yeah. All right. Moving along here. Next story up. All right. So this is all right. So Keontae Ferge is all right. Let me just start this over here. Sorry. Keontae Ferge is a black man from Monona, Wisconsin, who was handcuffed and held at gunpoint by cops for the crime of being black and living while black, essentially, for being in his own home. So take a look at this story, and we're going to watch the video. So here we'll take a look at the actual encounter. This is the police body cameras. So we're going to watch it from the perspective of one of the police body cameras. And again, this is a man who is staying. Keontae Ferge is staying in his a home that was in a place that was it belonged to his coach, and his coach was letting him stay at this apartment. A neighbor, white woman, decided to call the police because she didn't recognize him, and apparently that's enough to warrant this. Well, apparently it wasn't, because this man is now suing the police for this encounter. But let's take a look at this encounter, and then you'll see exactly why he's suing the Wisconsin police here. They still haven't said anything.
Police department, come out with your hands up. Come out with your hands up.
Okay.
Keep walking.
Here. This is me.
Okay.
Okay. Come on out here. You don't live here.
My coach's house, Coach Rundle.
Okay.
He let me and Torrance stay here. You can call him and ask him.
Okay. Go ahead and just, for right now, just turn around. Put your hands behind your back.
Is it Keontae?
Yes, it's Keontae.
Okay.
Okay.
Put your hands behind your back for a second. We're just going to detain you.
Why am I being detained though?
Because you don't live here, and the person that lived here passed away. So
Okay, can you guys call Coach Rundle?
Yeah,
then?
that's what we're going to do.
we'll deal with
Okay.
that. So
Yeah.
nobody else is here, Keontae?
No, Torrance gone. Can you loosen the cuffs though for real?
Yep, hold on a second.
Because my wrist is a little broken.
Is that better?
Yeah.
So this is the reason why you're here. Someone called because they.
I know, because I'm a black man and it's that lady right
So-
there, even though she waved at me.
That wasn't who.
It's because the person that lived here is passed.
Okay.
Right. And they're concerned that it got broken into or something. So we'll. Do you have a phone with his number in it that we can
Yes,
call him?
I do.
Mark?
Mark
Yeah.
Ronald.
Yeah.
Mark Ronald?
Yeah.
Do you know him?
She just, lady across the street just said that you're living here for like 2 months or something like that.
Yes.
Okay. Someone else.
She wasn't the one that called.
Yeah. Another neighbor called.
Yeah.
Said it should
I
not
know who
be.
he is. You can.
So turn around. I'm gonna take him off for you quick. And we'll go grab your phone and we'll let Mark or tell Mark to let his neighbors know that you said you and one other person are staying here,
Torn in.
that you guys are staying here so they don't call in and do this again. Okay.
All right.
So, do you guys have a vehicle or no?
Torrance have a vehicle.
Okay. What vehicle is it?
Don't have a Ford Focus.
Oh.
Ford Taurus.
What color do you know?
It's black.
So I'll let them know what vehicle, so they know what vehicle is going to be here and stuff.
Okay.
So this crap doesn't happen again, because I don't want to put you through it again.
Yeah.
But yeah, he said that nobody should be here and such. So Mark must have not told him that you guys are staying here, and he was concerned. And then I opened the door and I could hear you talking
No, I was on the phone.
back there. So okay.
So, I mean, so much there. Like, first off, they just rolled up into this house. The door was unlocked. The cops just walk up, see an unlocked door, and just decide to walk into this dude's house. So they just roll up in here. He lives there. Imagine you're staying at a place. You've been given permission to stay there by the owner. You're living and that is your home. That's your home. That's my situation right now. That's how I live right now. That's my situation. This is essentially, this could happen to me. This could happen to me because this is my exact situation. So I stay in a place I'm living with a friend, right? So now somebody else sees you, a neighbor sees you, and they don't recognize you. So they call the cops because they don't. Listen, mind your fucking business, people. Okay, that's what I got to say to this. Particularly white people, mind your fucking business, okay? Like, you do stop calling the cops on people for bullshit like this. This is crazy. This is somebody just living. He's just literally just living. He's just existing in this home. And that is enough for cops to be called, and cops to not just be called, but for them to show up, break into his apartment, essentially just walk into his apartment. Just because your door's unlocked, that is not an invitation for people to walk through your front door. That's not how it works. So you got cops just show up, open this dude's door up, walk in, don't say anything, don't announce themselves. Imagine if the dude just like walked out there and happened to be like cooking and he had a knife in his hand or something. Like, what do you think the outcome is here? What we just saw there was the best case scenario for what just for how the cops handle that situation, how it unfolds, what he ends up, his participation in there is the best case scenario, because we all know when the cops had their guns pointed like that. If I didn't tell you in advance, that this dude was suing right now, you probably would have thought, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next there? So you have a dude just existing in a home that he's living in. He's been there 2 months. He's been there 2 months. He's lived there. Another neighbor said, yeah, he's been here for 2 months. Then a different neighbor said, not the one that called the cops, as they said in the video there. And so, just for this dude living, just for him living and existing. Say, white lady sees him, and you have, and this is the power of whiteness in this country, is that you can call the cops anytime you want, and you're in your own home. And I've been arrested out of my own home, so I know this fucking feeling, man. And it's such a violation. So you got this dude, and they come in, guns pointed, handcuff him, and the dude's all the while just trying. Luckily, the way that he handled it was amazing. Just like to be able to be so calm. I did not handle it so calmly. When cops rolled up into my house, the first thing I said was, to the white person that brought them there, I was like, you have the fucking audacity to bring these fucking murderers into my home. That's the first thing that came out of my mouth. And you know how that ended? Me getting arrested. That's how that fucking ended. So Mark McKeever says, I guarantee my white ass wouldn't have been put into handcuffs. So fucking dismissive they were to him. I hope he has a great lawyer. Exactly. Like, the dude's like, yo, what do you mean? Like, I live here. This is my coach. Let me stay here. The coach, he says the coach's name. He's like, coach, let me stay here. Like, I've been living here for months. What do you but immediately your response is to handcuff that person. That's crazy. The dude's sitting there, hands up, no weapons, nothing like that. Why do you need to handcuff him? You just rolled up into his house. That's a violation of his rights. And that's why I'm glad he's suing. He's suing the cops and he's suing the city. The sad thing is, you sue to hopefully cause you get paid because you deserve to be paid for the inconvenience of what these people cause you, and the risk. I mean, your life, his life was endangered. And I don't know what the exact solution, the solutions to these kind of things can be, other than particularly, I'm sorry, but it's white people. And my mom's a white woman. So it's white people. I'm talking to my mom, and I'm talking to all white people. When I talk about white people, don't get too in your feelings and, oh, it's this black guy and he must be, racist himself because he's talking about white people like this. No, I'm speaking from, close connections to the whites there. So, I got, my mom's white. I'm talking to my mom when I say this. Don't stop calling cops on black people. At all white people just need to stop this shit. Stop using that it would happen with that case in the park in like Central Park with those Amy Cooper and that other dude whose last name was also Cooper. And she she's threatening him. Oh, I'm going to call the cops and say that a black man is threatening me. And you see all the while he's not doing a damn thing, but she's very comfortable doing that. And, that's using that power of whiteness against, at-risk black folks. And it's like, this dude's life was put at risk there. And so I don't know what I speak on, like, as a leftist, I'm for like moving away from, imprisoning people, and I'm definitely in favor of. I don't think that we can do total prison abolition. I don't know. Maybe we can. I convince me otherwise. If I got some anarchists up in here, please convince me otherwise. But I at least believe in a total, like, complete and utter reform of our prison system to a rehabilitative system, not a penalizing system. And so there's we could have a whole ass discussion about that, but still, I think that in this case, like, I don't know, for now, I would be in favor of, like, if you do this, I think that what this guy did, there was no violent crime, that he's not accused of anything like that. He was just living, he was existing, right? What this person who called the cops did, I consider that a violent crime in my book. Like, that's a moral crime. That's a violent moral crime in my book. Like, calling the cops on a black person in America for any reason other than you are witnessing this person physically harm somebody right now. Anything short of that, anything, and even in that case, like, there's some nuance there that would have to be had. Like, is this person defending themselves? Things like that have to be taken into account. But if it is not, I am witnessing somebody harming somebody or just about to physically harm somebody, stop it. Stop it. I don't give a fuck what the thing is. I do not, just stop it. They're in the park or they're just living while black. Like, I don't want to hear about, like, stop it. And if you do, I want to see, like, these people need to pay a fine to the people that they transgress against. Like, they should have to pay the person who they do this to. Now, I'm wary of that sort of stuff, but it's like, it should be damn near, like, I'm on the fence. Like, that should be possibly considered a criminal act. Like, I don't know where I stand on that, but I could get down with that being considered a criminal act. The act of calling the cops on somebody who is an innocent person. Like, if you do that, especially if it's a poor person, black person, brown person, not non-English speaking person, like, you are really putting this person's life at risk. So but I don't know. I don't know what I want to see happen there. I just want restorative justice. And I think that woman needs to do some restorative justice, pay that man her damn self instead of having all the taxpayers have to pay, and do some sort of community service, something, work with black children, something to make them have to understand black people better. So you don't think that every black person is a criminal, that, they thought that he was robbing the house. What the fuck? What gives you the idea? Who breaks into a house, robs it, and then lives there for 2 months? Come on with your bullshit. So, luckily in this thing, they uncuffed him at some point. These cops were more reasonable in the moment in their response and reaction to things, the way that it unfolded. I mean, it wasn't a reasonable thing to walk in there, guns, drawn, because you got one phone call from one person who says, I think that this is what's going on. That should not be justification for rolling up into anybody's home. No person, no armed individual should then be able to roll up in your home because one person thought they saw something. Like, I'm sorry, but no, that's just unacceptable. And it's going to keep going on as long as there's, folks that have this, that woman probably doesn't consider herself racist who called the cops. She probably doesn't consider herself racist. I'll tell you, that's racist. What you did was racist. That's a racist act that you just committed. And that was extremely racist. And that person might consider themselves some liberal, who knows what. It's always folks like that. So they're not immune to it. It's not always overt racism. There's plenty of forms of covert racism. And I don't know, calling the cops on black people is right on the line between overt and covert, honestly, because you can say calling on the cops on black folks for whatever reason you want, but you're putting someone's life at risk. You need to be aware of that. When you call the cops on a person, any person, you're putting their life at risk. But if you call the cops on any black person, you are putting their life at risk in particular. So black and brown people, indigenous people are the most disproportionately. Indigenous people are the number one most disproportionately murdered by police. So think twice. Please think twice about it, folks. Tammy, do we have any comments we want to get to before I push to the next story? No? All right. We're going to keep pushing along, y'all. We're going to try to make some good time on this show, get into a lot of topics here. So should be a good one. Lots more ahead. Let me just, before we move on from the story, I just want to read from this article here. So we have one more, just one thing I want to read from this article here. And this is from the Herald Independent, and just a bit of a follow-up on this story. So it says a Monona man has filed federal civil lawsuit against 2 Monona police officers after they handcuffed him and held him at gunpoint in his own home after a neighbor called 911 because she believed he didn't belong there. Keontae Ferge, 23, recently had moved into the Arrowhead Drive home at least 2 months earlier, after the previous owner had died and was sitting, that's a little unclear. I mean, So after the previous owner had died and was sitting on his porch around 11 a.m. on June 2nd, a neighbor saw him and called police, asking them to check on what she said was a suspicious African-American man next door to her. The lawsuit filed on September 14th states that Monona police officers Jared Wedding and Luke Wunsch illegally, that should be absolutely clear to everyone, that they illegally entered Ferge's home without a search warrant in any apparent circumstances. So they just rolled up into this dude's house. They just walked in. You saw it on their body cameras. They just opened the doorknob and just walked right in. Like, everybody should be outraged by that. If you're not outraged by that, there's something wrong with you. If you're not outraged by that. The lawsuit states a claim for unlawful entry, false arrest and detention, and excessive force / failure to intervene. The lawsuit states that the officers apologized for the misunderstanding to Ferge after they confirmed that he was living at the house and told him, "Sorry to ruffle your feathers this morning." Officer Wunsch reportedly said that both Keontae and his friend, quote, are both big black guys, so neighbors over here can be ... end quote, according to the lawsuit. So I'll just say that again. One of the officers, Officer Wunsch, reportedly said that both Keontae and his friend, quote, are both big black guys, so neighbors over here can be ... according to the lawsuit. So Ferge's lawyer said Monona police officers' actions violated his constitutional rights. Ferge is seeking punitive damages that are significant enough to prevent this from happening again in the future, end quote. And the Monona police reported when they arrived at the Arrowhead home and found the door unlocked, they followed protocol for a burglary and drew their guns. Ferge was handcuffed while police contacted the renter, who confirmed that Ferge lived there. I'm sorry, folks, but an unlocked door does not mean a burglary is in process, okay? We leave our door unlocked all the time. It does not mean a burglary is in process. That's absurd. So the idea that, somebody said, one white lady said it was going on, and then the door's unlocked. So theretofore, must be a robbery, an ongoing robbery here in progress. So they're being sued, and I think we'll keep an eye on that story to see where that ends up. But definitely hope that he gets paid. The sad, unfortunate thing is that it doesn't come out of the pocket of these cops or anything like that. It's the taxpayers that are going to have to foot the bill ultimately. But that the taxpayers should in this case, because wrong was done and injustice was committed against a civilian, and they deserve to be compensated for that accordingly. So, Mark McKeever says, why do I feel they released the body cam footage thinking that it would make them look good? Yeah, like they probably did. Like you're right. Like they probably thought like, oh, look at how we look so reasonable. And we eventually, after having illegally broken into this person's home, we then pointed guns at their face. Just the sight of cops alone scares the shit out of me. It scares the ever living shit out of me, much less cops with guns drawn, pointed in my face a few feet from me. So, they probably thought, oh, look at how after all of that, we uncuffed him eventually. We eventually saw reason and allowed him to call the owner of the home and to verify that. Maybe you could have tried doing that before you tried breaking into their home. Maybe you should have tried that beforehand. Maybe that's called, I don't know, police work, detective work. I don't know. You think that people are being robbed, that somebody's been robbed. Listen, no violent crime was being accused of being committed. At worst, this was a crime against property. No violence was being accused of being committed. Didn't require that level of force. Guns drawn, in somebody's face. But you're right, Mark. They probably thought that they somehow looked good because, oh, look at they saw reason and they softened up. And no, it's it's like you literally show yourself just walking right into this person's home unannounced. And if you watched early on in the clip, I don't know, that was me talking at first in there, but like they walk in and they're just quiet and they don't announce themselves. They're not like police or anything like that. They just walk right in. You have to have something like we all know from the Breonna Taylor case right now. You have to have something called a no-knock warrant to just walk into somebody's home without knocking. You cannot do that unless you have something called a no-knock warrant. They did not have a no-knock warrant. And nobody should have a no-knock warrant because we all see how badly those things can and do go. And so you can't, that's it just endangers life. That just endangers people's lives. So and they claiming that they somehow followed protocols my behind. So all right, we'll keep forging ahead. Let me know if you have any thoughts, comments on that. Drop some comments. We'll try to get to them in between takes here. So next story up. Okay. So we have a bit of international news here, something that I want to do more of. Oh, and okay. So, but before I get to this, if you're just joining us, please, before we get to the next story, do us a favor and immediately hit the like button right now, right down below there. So hit that like button down below if you're watching this on YouTube. Follow us if you're on Twitch. Subscribe to the channel. If you haven't done so already, you need to subscribe immediately if you're watching this. Also share the video on social media so that other folks can see it. That's the only way that we can grow the channel. It's what we really need. That's a great way to support the channel if you like what we do here. So please support us in that way. And if you can afford to do so, you can also support us on Patreon at become a member for as low as $1 a month. Patreon.com/radical democracy. If you can afford it, please do it. Just do it right now. Open up a new tab. If you're like me, you're too lazy to type that out, just open up the description box below this video. Click the link in the description box. There's a link at the bottom of the description box to our Patreon. Hit that link. Go over there. Just sign up for as low as $1 a month, and your support is just it's incredibly, it's crucial right now. We need your support. So it is crucial to keep this show going. You can also leave us a one-time tip in place of a super chat because we don't have the super chat feature enabled yet. So you can leave us a one-time tip at coffee.com/radical democracy. That's ko-fi.com/radical democracy. So please support the show, support independent media, support independent left media, independent Black media, by just supporting this show. And, we're trying to build radical democracy here, democracy in the workplace, one person, one vote for all decisions on where to work, what to do, what to produce, who's going to produce it, how to produce it, and what we do with the profits of our labor. We will decide that collectively here at Radical Democracy. So please support the cause, support Radical Democracy, support the show by supporting us on those platforms. Thank you so much to everyone who does. Shout out to our Patreon community for all of your support. Really, it's incredible. I can't thank you enough. I can't thank you enough. And so I'll keep thanking you for just forever, because I can't thank you enough. All right, pushing along here. So next story up is, we have some international news here. Something that I want to do more of on this show is I want to have an internationalist left-wing perspective. And I think it's crucial that we keep an eye out and pay attention to stories happening all over the globe, wherever they impact, working class people. We need to pay attention. So this is a story out of the Associated Press. Palm oil labor abuses linked to world's top brands and banks. On that for you. So this is from Malaysia. This is happening in Malaysia and Indonesia. And the article reads, Jum's words tumble out over the phone, his voice growing ever more frantic. Between sobs, he says he's trapped on a Malaysian plantation run by government-owned Felda, one of the world's largest palm oil companies. His boss confiscated and then lost his Indonesian passport, he says, leaving him vulnerable to arrest. Night after night, he has been forced to hide from authorities, sleeping on the jungle floor, exposed to the wind and the rain. His biggest fear, the roaming tigers. All the while, Jum says his supervisor demanded he keep working, tending the heavy reddish-orange palm oil fruit that has made its way into the supply chains of the planet's most iconic food and cosmetics companies like Unilever, L'Oreal, Nestle, and Procter & Gamble. I am not a free man anymore, he says, his voice cracking. I desperately want to see my mom and dad. I want to go home. An Associated Press investigation found many like Jum in Malaysia and neighboring Indonesia, an invisible workforce consisting of millions of laborers from some of the poorest corners of Asia, many of them enduring various forms of exploitation, with the most serious abuses including child labor, outright slavery, and allegations of rape. Together, the two countries produce about 85% of the world's estimated $65 billion palm oil supply. Palm oil is virtually impossible to avoid. Often disguised on labels as an ingredient listed by more than 200 names, it can be found in roughly half of the products on supermarket shelves and in most cosmetic brands. It's in paints, plywood, pesticides, and pills. It's also present in animal feed, biofuels, and even hand sanitizer. The AP interviewed more than 130 current and former workers from 24 palm oil companies who came from 8 countries and labored on plantations across wide swaths of Malaysia and Indonesia. Almost all had complaints about their treatment, with some saying they were cheated, threatened, held against their will, or forced to work off unsurmountable debts. Others said they were regularly harassed by authorities, swept up in raids, and detained in government facilities. They included members of Myanmar's long-persecuted Rohingya minority who fled ethnic cleansing in their homeland, only to be sold into the palm oil industry. Fishermen who escaped years of slavery on boats also described coming ashore in search of help, but instead ending up being trafficked onto plantations, sometimes with police involvement. So this was just a wild story that caught my attention, because you're talking about a product that's literally, they say palm oil makes its way into literally half of the products on supermarket shelves. And the reason you don't always know that it's in there is because they put it under different names. It can go by different names. And so it's just impossible to avoid it unless you're totally self-sustainable, growing your own food, that sort of thing. it's virtually impossible to avoid the stuff. And behind this industry, it seems to be completely propped up on slave labor, and rape is going on in this. You got child labor, slavery, child labor, and rape going on on these plantations in Malaysia and Indonesia. And these people, these are poor people that they're getting from all across, all over Asia. I'm gonna guess it's more of the Southeast Asia, just because it's they're bringing them to Malaysia and Indonesia. And so these are poor folks that are being brought into and being forced into slavery. And you had people, they talked about the fishermen who escaped slavery on boats, where they were being held captive and held as slaves on boats, and they escaped that only to come ashore and then be forced into captivity, where they then become slaves for the palm oil industry that apparently we all are dependent on in some way, or at least we are forced to be complicit in this disgusting scheme of forced labor and child labor and slavery. It's horrendous. So Thanatos says that's horrible, especially the Rohingya refugees being sold into palm oil slavery. These people are the Rohingya refugees are escaping persecution in their home country, only to then again, these people are escaping desperate situations, only to be led and forced into in even more or equally desperate and horrendous situation. So it's just something that we shouldn't ignore. We should definitely pay attention to these sorts of stories and do what we can. I mean, we got to call attention to this. We have to try to fight in whatever way we can to say, we need better labor laws that protect, not these free trade deals that are just about allowing companies to not have to pay money as they, exploit cheap labor around the globe, but instead have fair trade deals and to work on fair trade, left-wing fair trade deals, not the stuff that Joe Biden's going to go in the NAFTA and in TPP that Joe Biden supports. We don't want any more of those awful trade deals that lead to practices like this and reinforce practices like this. We don't want any more of that. We don't need any more of that. What we need is proper left-wing fair trade deals that protect workers in all countries, and don't just say, not just nationalist, nativist, protectionist sort of policy, but really internationalist, humanist policies that recognize the humanity of all working class people, no matter where they happen to be born or reside geographically, and recognize that we want to protect all working people, and instead of being pitted against one another, one country's working people being pitted against the working people of another country. I mean, they even do it, state to state and city to city in this country, but they when they can exploit labor for, outside of the country, they definitely do that too. And here they're exploiting people. They're exploiting children, women, men as slaves here. And, and getting away with it, by and large. This is it's gone completely under the radar. This is the first I've ever heard of this, and it needs to get, I just want to draw as much attention to this as possible so that folks are aware that these practices are going on, and we can think about how do we actually fight against this? How do we build, work towards left-wing policies that recognize that these labor practices, if we just simply allow companies to, use, if we're just fighting about, tariffs and those sorts of things, and that's the extent of our policy, and free trade deals that just allow capital to flow freely without allowing labor to flow freely, then you'll have practices that are terrible for human beings and terrible for the planet, and those will just continue, because palm oil apparently is also terrible for the planet. It's not just, so it's also terrible for the people that are working in this industry as well. So we talk about local sustainability efforts and things like that. We definitely got to have X on the show soon, one of our Patreons who has worked on local sustainability efforts for the past over 5 years, I know. And so I think 6 years now. And So, we should hope to have them on to discuss some of the benefits of that sort of those efforts and why that's so important. So this has been going on for decades, really, and the banks are involved in this as well. They fund this. The banks, are funding this system so that it allows this to continue and allows this to happen. So we just got to be on the lookout and try to fight for policy that's going to protect workers, not just in this country, but all around the world, and make sure that if a company is being is an American company, then wherever they are, if they're going to do business in America, then they cannot do business as long as they have any sort of exploitative labor practices like this. That needs to be the normal that we create. And so I look forward to seeing us bring about that change, but we definitely need to keep a focus on this so that we see what's going on and we don't allow it to just be swept under the rug, and we can stand in solidarity with working class people all over the world and make sure that they know that they're not alone, and that we see them, we recognize this, we know that this is wrong, and we will work to stop it. We will fight to stop this. All right. Do we have any comments we want to get to? If you haven't done so already, if you're just joining us and you haven't done so already, please hit the like button, subscribe, share this video out, and really appreciate that. Also, you can support us on Patreon and at Coffee for one-time tips. So Mark McKeever says, nice to see these types of stories highlighted on your show. Reminds me of Michael Brooks and his reporting of issues outside of our borders. I deeply appreciate those words. Just even being mentioned in the same breath as Michael Brooks is an honor. And yes, that's who that's one of my big influences, and part of the reason that I want to have that focus is because of his show, and that I used to get that from his show, and I want to be some small part of filling in that gap that will be left behind by those are massive shoes to fill there, and no one person can ever do it. But I think that a bunch of us working in conjunction can elevate ourselves to that level. And so I hope to continue to try to push. And I have another story that I'd like to cover. I don't think that we'll get to it today, but I'm hoping to cover it tomorrow, or definitely on the next episode. We'll be covering it if we don't cover it today. And that's another important international story that we should all be paying attention to, what's going on in Bolivia there with their elections coming up in Bolivia. So, the Socialist Party has a good chance to win. And we saw some real screwed up shit with the Bolivian coup. We did a segment on the Bolivian coup. We did more about Elon Musk and his terrible take on the Bolivian coup, which likely was influenced by the need for lithium batteries for electric cars. And so, that Elon Musk benefits from. And so we should also be wary of those sort of anti-democratic things happening even in the green energy sector. We have to be aware of that. So, all right. So thank you so much for those kind words, Mark. I really appreciate that. And we will try to continue to do more of that and draw attention to these international stories, because we on the left, if we're not recognizing that shared humanity, as Cornel West says, then we're not doing enough. And so we have to have a universe, like an international cosmopolitan view of the world, where a cosmopolitan being like the idea of being, we're all human beings are part of one culture. We're all part of one population, one culture, and we're going to work across borders to solve our problems as working class people, because that's the only way that we'll ever gain enough power to actually substantively change the conditions, the material conditions for working class people all around the world in a sustainable way, is if we fight together in solidarity across the planet. So it's going to require an immense amount of collectivism in community, and we need to make sure that we're paying attention in the US. And I was raised this way in America. We have a much more limited international view. We don't get as much of an international perspective. We're sort of kept in a bit of a bubble here and made to think that the world doesn't exist outside of the US borders. And that's something that I was susceptible to, and I fell victim to sort of, early on, and just didn't have much of an international perspective and an understanding of foreign policy. And so that's something that I've gained through watching the Michael Brooks show in particular. And so, rest in power to Michael Brooks always. And, just honored to even be mentioned in the same breath as him. So thank you so much, Mark. Really appreciate that. And I see a comment there. Mark says, is Miss No Mike choking in the background there? And yes, the answer is as you see there, yes, she did. That was our super producer Tammy in the background on the ones and twos. Super producer Tammy. Everyone, give her a round of applause and a big thank you for all that she does here. But yeah, definitely appreciate everything that she does for us, and she is always just there, lurking behind the scenes, doing amazing stuff, helping the show to exist and to be awesome. So thank you so much to Tammy for all she does and for all of her support. All right, so let's keep pushing. We're going to keep forging ahead to the next story here. And this is just I beat up on Democrats a lot because that's the party that I'm closer to. And so I feel the need. I feel like I have more of a ability to impact folks. And so I feel like I have more there's more potential for me to change the Democratic Party than to change the Republican Party. So I get more frustrated with the Democratic Party when they work against the progressive base. And so sometimes I'm a little, I feel like my coverage might be a little bit biased in a way, lean too heavily, be a little bit too beat up on the Democrats too much, and not ignoring some of the awful, terrible things that the Republicans are doing sometimes. So I want to make sure that I still pay attention to that, call that out, make sure it's almost like I just kind of assume there's like this base level of like, of course, what they're doing is awful and terrible. And do I even need to say it? But I realize, yes, I do need to say it sometimes. So in that light, in that regard, this is what this next story is about here, just making sure that we are paying attention to all the terrible things that Donald Trump is doing. So let's get to it. All right. So this was a story in the news recently. Trump apparently thought that it was funny that a former MSNBC anchor, Ali Velshi, was shot during a peaceful protest with a rubber bullet. And apparently Trump thought that was hilarious. And so I just wanted to show you, it's just a reminder that our president is a terrible person. I don't think most people here need to be reminded of it, but here we go.
I remember this guy, Welchie, he got hit on the knee with a canister of tear gas and he went down. He was down. My knee. Nobody cared. These guys didn't care. They moved them aside. And they just walked right through. It was the most beautiful thing.
State troopers to fire on them again? Am I? All right, guys, I got hit. Yeah, I got hit. Hold on. They're aiming their fire now. They're working towards us. Get back. You're in. He's in. Step back. All right, there has been no provocation, Joshua. There was nothing that happened whatsoever. The police pulled into this intersection unprovoked right into the middle of the crowd, split the crowd, started firing in both directions. They now have fired at us. Miguel, stay with me. All right, guys, I got hit. Yeah, I got hit. Hold on.
So that's our president there. And you can see the clip of what actually happened there. And you got Donald Trump out here finding it funny that a journalist is there reporting on a peaceful protest, a completely peaceful protest, protected by, I thought it was protected by our First Amendment rights. You know, it was the very First Amendment. So I thought it was a pretty important amendment. And you got, you know, freedom of the press, freedom of speech there, freedom to protest. They just violated every layer of the First Amendment. They managed to do a 3-for-1 deal on the First Amendment right there. And so you got peaceful protesters and a journalist at that just reporting on a peaceful protest, and he gets shot by a rubber bullet. So and Donald Trump somehow thinks that that's funny, that the dude got shot. Like, I mean, it's gross. That's gross. That's authoritarian. It's disgusting. And it goes without saying. So I just wanted to, came across is, I don't want to spend too much time on it because we know Donald Trump is garbage, and this is the kind of stuff that you can expect out of him. So it's just an awful thing to do. And I don't see where you can find, like, what's funny about that? What's funny about it? I can't even, but I mean, if you're that, you know, in that authoritarian sort of dictatorial mindset of his, it's, you know, fascistic in many ways of just like that, but really authoritarian without a doubt. And it's just gross. So I wanted to call attention to that terrible behavior from the president. I mean, he once mocked a disabled journalist. He's the dude's gross, and we all know him. We know what he is, and we know what his tendencies are. And so it didn't surprise me, but it was just a particularly awful example of who he is. And just wanted to call attention to it so that folks don't say that I'm not fair and objective there. So, all right. I'm going to keep pushing ahead. If you have any thoughts, leave your thoughts in the comments. If you haven't done so already, if you're just joining us, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Please subscribe to the channel so that you can, come back here, join us again for future streams. You can hit the bell if it's not too annoying. If you don't want any notifications, hit the bell and then say none. If you don't want any notifications and you're the type of person that hates notifications, totally understand it. But if you don't mind being notified, it's about on average like 2 notifications per day you might get from us on average. It's not every day. And you'll get notifications whenever we go live or launch a new video. So if you hit that bell and press all, if you can afford to do so, please support us on Patreon. Become a member on Patreon at patreon.com/radical democracy for as low as $1 a month. $1 a month. If you can afford that, $12 a year, $1 a month, please go over and do it right now. You can find a link to it in the description box below. So if you just open up that description box below, you'll find a link at the bottom of the description box to our Patreon. Shout out to all of our Patreon community for your support. If you would like to leave us a one-time tip in place of a super chat while we wait for the super chat feature to be enabled, you can give us a one-time tip by heading over to coffee.com/radical democracy. That's ko-fi.com/radical democracy. There's a link to that in the description box down at the bottom of the description box below as well. So if you'd like to just leave us a one-time tip, you can leave a comment there. Any comment you leave, we'll read it out on stream here and give you a shout out. Anyone who signs up to our Patreon, give you a live shout out here. Really appreciate the support to everyone that has already done so and supports the show that way. It's just, I can't thank you all enough. I love you all. I really do. I love you. So thank you so much. And it's deeply appreciated. Whoa, we got a new Patreon subscriber. That's awesome. So, okay, let me take a look here. So thank you so much to our newest Patreon subscriber. Let's see. Christina Sun. Thank you so much, Christina. Thank you. Thank you so much, Christina. We really appreciate that. Thank you to Christina Sun, our newest Patreon subscriber. Shout out. Christina says, also loving this show. Thanks for catching us up, Kamali. You are quite welcome, Christina. Thank you so much. So, And Christina says, thank you, Tammy. Awesome. So thank you so much, Christina. Really, really appreciate that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Love it. So we got a new Patreon subscriber. That's awesome. We are one more subscriber away from hitting our 10th Patreon subscriber. If you would like to become our 10th Patreon subscriber, head over to patreon.com/radical democracy right now and become our 10th Patreon subscriber. It's 10 today. It's going to be 10,000 someday. I promise you folks. All right. We are going to grow the largest democratic media platform on the planet. All right. We believe in radical democracy here, democracy in the workplace, one person, one vote on all major decisions. That's the way that we believe that you get rid of that's how you defeat the capitalist system, is by getting rid of the employers. No more employer and employee. Everybody is the employer and the employee. You all share in the control equally. If we believe in democracy, if we truly believe in democracy, the first place that we should institute democracy is the place where we spend the majority of our waking hours in our lives. So that's in our workplaces. So please support the movement for radical democracy, the movement for democracy in the workplace, by supporting the show. Patreon.com/radical democracy to become a member, become our 10th member, or you can leave a one-time tip at coffee.com/radical democracy. Thank you so much, so much, so much. Love it, Christina. Thank you so much, Christina. We really appreciate that. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Christina. I love it. Thank you. All right. Gonna keep Mark McKeever says in some pumps administration has the audacity to preach about the Chinese government and their lack of respect of journalists. Shaking my head. Yeah, all the stuff that they do, all the anti-China rhetoric is all about just trying to create some other that they can blame for all of the problems they do. Capitalists will always try to find a way to blame the other. They want to say, oh, it's the immigrants, it's the other people. They're coming in and they're taking your jobs, and oh, China's cheating and they're cheating, and they steal our intellectual property, and that's why we need to have these trade wars. And it's just it's just and they act as if they're authoritarian while we sit there and we support countries like Saudi Arabia. You tell me who's freer, the people, the folks in China or the folks in Saudi Arabia. Tell me who has more democracy, who has more freedom there. And so you have that rhetoric is really just about creating someone else to blame for when all these problems go wrong. It's the Chinese virus, because as if viruses aren't something that we've lived with since the beginning of time. The Spanish flu started in Kansas, and but they call it the Spanish flu because we always want to try to put the blame somewhere else and say, oh, it's some foreign thing that's bad. It's this bad foreign thing, and it's evil, and it's dangerous, and we have to be afraid of it. And that's why we need to do all these terrible policies. That's why we have to have poverty and homelessness and children going hungry and people, tens of millions of people unemployed. And that's why we have to have all of this, because if we don't, it's the big scary China, as Trump always says, China. It's really to just distract you from the reality of who's really screwing you over, which is the corporations and the politicians that are in power who have been bought by those corporations. And they're American corporations, they're international, they're global corporations. These, what Sheldon Volin calls reverse totalitarianism. These corporations are not beholden to any nation state, and they can just pack up and leave, and they pit one working class person against another in order to exploit labor. And so, yeah, you have Donald Trump here, he's best friends with Rodrigo Duterte, who's, a major dictator. He's cozy with MBS, Mohammed bin Salman from Saudi Arabia. So Trump is no one to talk about authoritarianism in suppression of free speech. I mean, certainly in any big C communist governments have had issues with repression and suppression of speech. And so that's something that we should acknowledge. That's why I don't believe in authoritarian, socialism, as some people call it, authoritarian socialism, or big C communism. I don't advocate for that, because I think that was the mistake that was made there. It creates an environment for repression to happen and suppression to happen like that. So that's why the fight that we're fighting is the 21st century socialism, which is democracy in the workplace. And yeah, Trump does not respect journalism or, journalists and free in the First Amendment. They claim to care about these, the First Amendment and the Second Amendment, but they violate it at every opportunity. It's only when it works in their favor. That's when they care about it. When I forget what his name is, Walker in the Breonna Taylor case, the boyfriend who fired the gun, or Philando Castile, who had a legal gun, they're not concerned about the Second Amendment when it's a black person there with their legal weapon. The NRA doesn't come in and defend them or anything like that. They don't care about the First Amendment. They care about the First Amendment when they claim that it's college kids getting mad and being anti-free speech on campus, for like protesting Milo Yiannopoulos. Then they're like anti-free speech, and they all hate, they all want free speech. But then here we go. You're talking about a free speech in the right to protest. That's the First Amendment. And you got people protesting, and Trump has been completely antagonistic towards these protesters. And this is just more of that. And even to the point where you're laughing at a journalist who got shot, just trying to covering a peaceful protest. Cops just rolled up, and he's narrating it. Ali Velshi, and he called him Welshi, but it's Ali Velshi. And he's, for all the MSNBC hosts, by the way, I like Ali Velshi on the topic of Medicare for all. He's really good on Medicare for all because he's Canadian and he's lived under a universal healthcare system. So he's really good on that issue. And whenever he has people on trying to play these like old right-wing talking points, like he shuts them down on the topic of Medicare for all. So he's good on that issue, and I want to give him credit there. So he's actually a halfway, as far as MSNBC host goes, he's a halfway decent one. And it's just particularly gross. Trump wouldn't have done this, and he wouldn't be laughing if it was a Fox host who got shot with the bullet. And that's just tribalistic. So it's gross. You used to hear the word unpresidential like once a day for the first year of Trump's presidency, but it's like we've given up, and it's just what's become the new normal. And I should have mentioned that when we were talking about that case earlier with Keontae Furge. It's become so normalized to us that we celebrate that black kid didn't get murdered by cops in his own home. Like we're happy that he didn't get shot and paralyzed like Jacob Blake, or killed like Breonna Taylor for just existing in their own home. So it's gotten to the point that we're normalizing these terrible, horrendous things, so much to the point that we actually are almost celebrating when people are getting their civil rights violated by cops breaking into their home and holding them at gunpoint and handcuffing them. And that's somehow a win for us, because we've normalized this idea that like cops are going to kill unarmed, innocent black and brown people, poor people for no reason. And they're going to get away with it. Like we saw in the case of Breonna Taylor. And quick shout out to everyone that's out there that's been protesting for the past few days. Just, my heart goes out to everyone. And this is, you see these signs back here is from protests that I've been to, and I'm at the point where I'm like, I think that the general strike is the move that we need to be making. I think that that's the real protest that we need to be having, is a general strike, and nothing less than that, I think, is going to make and have any real impact, any sort of real change in this country. I think that we need something akin to the Yellow Vest movement in France. That's what we need. We need people every day saying enough is enough. I'm going out there. I'm gonna show up every weekend, every day after work. We're gonna throw on our yellow vest or whatever symbol we want to use, and we're gonna go out there and we're going to make our voices heard consistently. And really what I think that we need in this country is just a straight up general strike, mass withholding of labor, in an act of solidarity across all industries, that for wherever if somebody has the ability to do so, they should. That's what we need. We need a general strike in order to grind this country to a halt until they make the changes that we, the people, want them to make. Our democracy has gotten away from us at this stage, and we're left with, between two bad choices in the upcoming election, and no real possibility for fundamental change. And so at least under a Biden, you can say, like, you won't get you'll still have assholes like this, but it just won't be the president of the United States, at least, doing this terrible stuff. So Mark McKeever says, no, the Democrats gave up and the media covers for them. The Dems love all that fundraising money because of Trump. It's a sick system we live in. Yeah, that's so true. Such a great point. They love to have Trump as the bad guy up there because they can fundraise against him. Like when RBG passed, they fundraised like it was tens of millions of dollars in that 24 hours, like because they can use that threat of like, oh no, Trump's that bad and he is terrible, and then but they let him get elected, and then they use the fact that this awful person who they lost to, these buffoons lost to this terrible, reality TV, joker, and repeat failed businessman, bankrupted like 6 different times, and they lose to that guy, and then they turn around and they fundraise against him. They just fundraise off of him, and they're happy to do so. And they're happy to, this is why, because of this, something that we didn't really get to talk about with the RBG news when RBG passed was like one of the effects of that is that the Democrats now, because they have RBG to focus on and they can use that threat of like, well, you got to do this for the Supreme Court. There's now pretty much a 0% chance of any economic stimulus happening because they don't have to fight for that or do anything about that. They can just shift all of their focus to the fight for the Supreme Court, which is a fight that we shouldn't have been having in the first place, folks. Like RBG was 80 years old in 2013 when Obama was elected for and inaugurated for his second term. The writing was on the wall. She was battling cancer. Like she absolutely could have stepped away then, but out of some sort of sense of ego and legacy, she stuck around and held on, probably thinking like, oh, it'll just be Hillary Clinton after Obama and things will be totally fine. And look what happened there. And we didn't. So we're in these dangerous situations. And then they use that to again distract and say, okay, well, draw all your focus on that so that people aren't even thinking about the fact that they still only sent out a $1,200 stimulus payment. That's all they really gave to, just the working class. That's all they gave was a one-time $1,200 payment for over 6 months now of a pandemic. And they are, Congress is doing nothing right now to try to, improve the unemployment benefits, to give another stimulus payment, which is what really, that also needs to happen. Give, start a universal basic income, $2,000 a month stimulus payments. So, that's another thing that they need to start up and start doing is just, get cash into working class people's hands. But that's not going to happen as long as they have this RBG situation to sort of distract with. And they're happy to use these distractions instead of having to actually fight for real change. And so good point, Mark McKeever. Great point. Thanks for the comment there. Oh, yes, we got our 10th Patreon patron. That's awesome. Thank you. So shout out to Brandon. Are you okay? Brandon. Okay, what is that the whole name? That's the okay. All right. Brandon, are you okay? Brandon. All right. That's an interesting name you got there, Brandon. But thank you so much. Shout out to our 10th Patreon patron. That's awesome. That is freaking awesome, y'all. So thank you so much, 10 Patreon patrons. That's a huge milestone. That's a huge, massive milestone. Thank you so much. Tammy's chatting here.
They pledged $7.52.
Interesting.
Which isn't an option, but you can
choose your
so tell people they can put whatever.
Brandon pledged $7.52 a month, which it's not like we have a tier for that. You can pledge whatever you want, folks. So whatever amount you want, you can pledge. As again, I think it's as low as $1 a month. I know at least $1 a month, but anything over $1 a month, you can pledge any amount. And so pledge whatever you can afford. Thank you so much, Brian. That's amazing. We deeply appreciate that. Oh, Brandon. Sorry. I'm looking at Brian Dew's name on the screen right now. Sorry. So sorry. Thank you so much, Brandon. Thank you, Brandon. I really, really deeply appreciate that. That is amazing. Thank you to and shout out to our 10th Patreon patron. That's so cool. So awesome. Thank you so much. That's so awesome. Really appreciate that. That is super cool. So, all right. Woo. All right. Let's see. Mark McKeever says, "Oh, there'll be another stimulus package, but not for you and me, but for the fucking airline companies." Like, yeah, we'll get stimulus. They'll do stimulus for like corporations and the wealthiest people. They'll find ways, and they've already been. They're getting a stimulus. The wealthy folks, they got the $4.5 trillion stimulus already, while working people got their little pittance and their $1,200 a month, and then on top of that, like the Fed has been injecting like trillions of dollars into the markets to prop up these markets, and so the government is taking on a lot of this, a lot of the debt, a lot of the bonds and securities. They're taking that on. So yeah, that's just that's what that is. The likelihood is that if any stimulus happens, it's not going to be a stimulus for the people, of course. It's going to be a stimulus for the largest corporations and the wealthy folks. So shout out to, I see Jamiko, the producer, in the building. That's awesome. Shout out to Jamiko, one of our great friend of the show here, great friend of mine personally. And so thank you to Jamiko for being with us. Shout out. And oh, did we make it to what? We made it to $50 pledged a month. Woo! That is awesome, y'all. So we made it to 50. We're across the $50 mark. So we are over $50 a month pledged for the show. That is so freaking cool, y'all. That's amazing. Thank you, everyone. I just can't. I can't thank you enough. Okay, Jamiko says that's me, LOL. I was trying to get you to 50, but I'm bad at math. That's awesome. Shout out to Jumi there. Thank you, yo. I deeply appreciate that, especially, yeah. So thank you so much, dude. I love you, literally love you. So Jamiko says, and when I try to edit it, it's giving me an error. All right, nice. Thank you. I appreciate it. I love it. We hit 50. Thanks to Jamiko. Thanks to my brother there. Shout out to the family right there. That's family, y'all. So that's Radical Democracy fam right there. Massive shout out. That's dope. So thank you, everyone. That's so awesome. I'm sorry. I'm geeked out now that we hit 10 Patreon patrons. That's dope. It's awesome, and I love it. All right. Yep. So, and just want to shout out again, Christina Sun. So not only for joining, but then, also immediately upgrading membership. So shout out to Christina Sun. Yeah, I love you all. And I can't say it enough, but I love you all. So just thank you to Christina. Thank you so much, Christina, for your support. It allows us to, your support, it's literally what allows this show to exist, to grow. We are growing. We're constantly growing, constantly trying to improve the show. And it's the only way that we can continue is if we have the support of folks like Christina, folks like Jumi out there. And so thank you, Christina, not just for signing up, them for upgrading to just, I deeply appreciate it. We deeply appreciate it. Tammy says thanks. And we deeply appreciate it. Can't thank you enough. I love you all. So thank you so much. This has been an exciting stream here for that. That's really cool. And we are getting so close. We're so close. After this stream, I'm pretty sure we're going to cross the, I'm almost certain after this stream, we are going to be within 100 hours of being able to apply on YouTube for monetization. So it's 4,000 watch hours within a single year. And we are nearing the corner to being less than 100 hours of watch hours away from that. To put that in perspective, if 100 people watch a 1 hour, live stream of mine, or a 1 hour, episode or clip, then that's the 100 watch hours right there. It's not like it means one person has to watch 100 hours or anything like that. So it's something we do collectively as a community here. So thank you so much. It's really awesome. I'm super excited about the growth on the channel here. And it doesn't mean that we're going to get monetization. We have to apply for monetization once we cross the 4,000 hour mark, but it's still a super exciting milestone to hit. And it's all thanks to you, all of you. So thank you so much to the whole community here. Mark McKeever says, woohoo, let's hear it for math. Ha. I actually used to tutor calculus. I love me some math. So I am a true calc nerd. So definitely love me some math. Oh, and I needed to take a look to make sure. Okay. All right. I tried to add like the watermark on this thing on YouTube, but I need to take the watermark. I think I need to take the watermark off of the other one too, so that it doesn't double show on YouTube. But I don't know if it's gonna. It is. Is it double? Is it both of them? Okay, I got to take away one. Let me take away one. Is it now? Okay, tell me if it updates so that it's now. Sorry, just doing some behind the scenes stuff. Mark McKeever says, oh, here comes Tammy's gold-plated microphone. That's awesome. Yeah, I know, right? We are just trying to get Tammy one of these basic little mics here. We want Tammy's voice added to the show, so we need our super producer to be up in here, and hoping to make that happen. So support us on Coffee if you would like to see that happen. But honestly, I mean, we if we get enough like support through Patreon, we'll do it through the Patreon subscriptions too. So we've gotten a bunch of support on both platforms, and we just are we're just so grateful for that, really. Right. So let's take a look. Do we have any other comments we want to get to? All right. Tammy says yes. She's nodding. Shin says, what's up, Shin? Shin says the differences between the Democrat and Republican parties are minimal. Both parties support the wars, government surveillance, regime change, outsourcing, fossil fuels, Wall Street. Absolutely, this capitalism. Absolutely, it's the reality is that it's I forget who it is. I think Jesse Ventura, somebody says, in Lee Camp says that it's pretty much one party, that it's pretty much a one party system that we essentially have going now. It's just one corporate party, and they make the difference so small between them, so that there's almost no difference. Whoever wins, whether Trump wins or Biden wins, the capitalists are happy. The wealthy people are happy. They don't care which one of them wins at this point. They're going to be fine. It's all the rest of us that are going to suffer. Depending. So absolutely agree, Shin. Thanks for the comment. Let's maybe LP92. What's up, Let's Maybe? Thanks for joining us again. Let's Maybe says, hello, dropping in to hear your opinion on which of the potential SCOTUS picks would be the lesser of the evils. So let's get to that story, actually. Let's dig right into that story. Thank you for the segue, actually. So let's get to that story. All right, next story up. Let's talk SCOTUS. All right. So sorry, just pulling up. All right. So this is a story out of BBC News. Republicans secure vote. Ginsburg Supreme Court. Republicans secure vote for replacement. So this is from September 22nd. And Republicans have secured the numbers needed to ensure that President Donald Trump's Supreme Court nominee will face a confirmation vote in the Senate. Senator Mitt Romney of Utah has given the party the 51 backers needed to move forward with voting on Mr. Trump's candidate to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who died on Friday. Democrats argued there should be no confirmation in an election year, something they were arguing against when it was Merrick Garland in the case of Obama. And the Republicans said, we're in favor of that. And now they've completely flipped on it. Obviously, both of them have flipped. The Democrats are more in the right here because they're saying they're doing it because the Republicans are the ones that set the precedent for not confirming in an election year. So they're not being hypocritical here. They're just trying to react to the Republicans' hypocrisy on this. So the move guarantees a bitter political battle going into November's vote. President Trump says he will announce his chosen nominee on Saturday at 5 p.m. local time and has vowed to pick a woman. So there has been an update in this story. So just before we get to that and the discussion of the specific SCOTUS picks here, just something to note here is, of course, you know, the him having enough votes means that he's comfortable putting forth a nominee in pushing to have the hearings, to hold the hearings, because if they hold the hearings, then he's already confident that every single Republican will vote and will have another party line vote for a Supreme Court pick, and it'll just be split up along party lines. They'll vote them in, and they can confirm. So they have enough votes to confirm this nominee. Now, there is political reasons why. There's nothing really stopping them from doing that. There's no legal reason that they can't put this Supreme Court pick through. The only political reason that they wouldn't put the pick through is if they were concerned that by forcing the pick through before the election would harm some of the either Donald Trump in the election or some of those down ballot candidates like the senatorial or House races. So that could impact some of those candidates and specifically here it would be the Senate races, because the Senate is the ones who are going to vote on to confirm whoever Trump's nominee is. So that's the Senate's responsibility to confirm the Supreme Court justices. So it would be the senators that would be getting damaged by this particularly, and potentially Donald Trump and the senators. So that would be the concern. That would be the only real concern for them, would be a political concern. They could also then not, if they were concerned about that politically, they could then not he could nominate the person but not confirm them before the election, and that's another option. They could not confirm them before the election, but they could simply wait until after the election, no matter what happens, whether Donald Trump wins or whether Joe Biden wins. If Donald Trump wins, then it's just a guarantee. I mean, you know that he's getting the next Supreme Court pick. If he wins the election, it's over. I mean, he's guaranteed to get that Supreme Court pick. But even if Joe Biden were to win, they would still have an opportunity in what's called the lame duck session, which is the time period between when a new president is elected and the sitting president is still in office until the mid-January inauguration. So that's considered the lame duck period. And oftentimes major legislation doesn't typically get passed through in those times, but Republicans are ruthless in this regard. And even though it would be hypocritical of them, since they refused to confirm Obama's Supreme Court pick for over 9 months, Merrick Garland, who was a centrist pick, they were able to block him because on the grounds that, it's unprecedented to nominate someone to confirm a Supreme Court justice in an election year, and now they've moved the goalpost on that to say that it's only if it's the opposition party in power and blah blah blah. They're just moving the goalpost. It's just hypocrisy from the Republicans. So on the some news has come down today about some more news about Donald Trump's pick for the Supreme Court. I know it's, as they said in that article, it's set to be announced on Saturday, but we have an article here from CNN that says sources say Trump intends to choose Amy Coney Barrett for Supreme Court. And so this, again, news just broke today on this. And it says President Donald Trump intends to choose Amy Coney Barrett to be the new Supreme Court justice, according to multiple senior Republican sources with knowledge of the process. In conversations with some senior Republican allies on the Hill, the White House is indicating that Barrett is the intended nominee, multiple sources said. All sources caution that until it is announced by the president, there is always the possibility that Trump makes a last-minute change, but the expectation is Barrett is the choice. He is scheduled to make the announcement on Saturday afternoon. All right. And just for a little background on Amy Coney Barrett really quickly, just for folks who aren't familiar with her, we have another article from CNN that breaks down a little bit of her background. So let's take a look at that. This is from a September 21st article. Amy Coney Barrett, a proven conservative on Trump's Supreme Court shortlist. So Amy Coney Barrett, a proven conservative on Trump's Supreme Court shortlist. And Judge Amy Coney Barrett, Judge Amy Coney Barrett, a federal appellate judge and Notre Dame law professor, is a proven conservative with a compelling personal story who has long been atop President Donald Trump's Supreme Court shortlist. The mother of 7 children and a former law clerk to the right-wing beacon, Justice Antonin Scalia, Barrett, now 48, was a finalist for the Supreme Court spot that went to Brett Kavanaugh in 2018. She met with Trump to discuss the nomination on Monday, sources close to the process told CNN. Advocates on the far right have backed her possible nomination because of her writings on faith and the law. Religious conservatives were especially energized for Barrett when, during the 2017 confirmation hearing, her current judgeship, Democratic Senator Dianne Feinstein of California suggested to her that the, quote, dogma lives loudly within you, end quote. Barrett's supporters believed the nominee was being disparaged for her Catholicism. For all the reasons that Trump is seriously considering Barrett as a successor to the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Democratic senators and liberal advocates have long been poised to oppose her, warning particularly that she could roll back abortion rights and invalidate the Affordable Care Act. Critics beyond Feinstein. So critics beyond Feinstein, the senior Democrat on the Senate Judiciary Committee, have suggested Barrett's religious views would influence her rulings. So on the Second Amendment, immigration and abortion, since joining the appellate bench, Barrett has been a cautious jurist, plainly aware that she remains under a national microscope for any Supreme Court confirmation battle. Still, she has demonstrated her conservative bona fides on Second Amendment gun rights, immigration, and abortion. Last year, she dissented alone when a Seventh Circuit panel majority rejected a Second Amendment challenge from a man found guilty of felony mail fraud and prohibited from possessing a firearm under federal and Wisconsin law. More recently, in June, she dissented as a Seventh Circuit panel left intact a U.S. District Court decision temporarily blocking a Trump policy that disadvantaged green card applicants who apply for any public assistance. In dispute were federal immigration regulations regarding when an applicant would be deemed a, quote, public charge, end quote, and ineligible for permanent status in the U.S. So in 2018, when the full Seventh Circuit declined to reconsider a dispute over an Indiana abortion regulation requiring that the post-abortion fetal remains be cremated or buried, Barrett dissented with fellow conservatives. They began by focusing on a more contentious provision that had been earlier invalidated and not subject to the appeal. That provision made it unlawful for physicians to perform an abortion because of the race, sex, or disability of the fetus. Barrett joined an opinion written by fellow conservatives referring to the law as, quote unquote, eugenic statute. Barrett and the others asserted, going beyond the legal dispute before them, that, quote, none of the court's abortion decisions holds that states are powerless to prevent abortions designed to choose the sex, race, and other attributes of children, end quote. So that's a little bit about Amy Coney Barrett and just a little bit of her background. She is what you sort of is your, far right, typical conservative. It's what would by and large be considered far right views, cultural views. Economically, she's in the same place as most of the other justices on the court. They're all pretty much center right at best. They sort of all hover around there. They hover from the center right to right wing economically. And yeah, so that's who we have. Let's Maybe says Lagoa was a shortlisted justice that would have made things interesting. Yeah, I didn't pay too much attention to whoever, I didn't have enough time to dig into the full list for Trump's selections. Most of these selections are coming from a list that Trump received from the Federalist Society. And so it's not Trump that is doing the legwork here. I mean, he tries to find the worst one that, like the most terrible, evil, awful one that he can find typically. But, I mean, it's your standard, it's a woman. So, great. It's a woman on the court, but she's like this far right, has these like sort of extremist sort of far right views. And so I honestly I just don't have the energy or the time and energy to focus on the list, the short list even for Trump. I was just waiting to hear who the pick was going to be or likely to be, to then dig into their background, because we have no say over this, and it doesn't matter. They're going to be terrible. They're going to be completely against everything that we believe pretty much on the left. And so there was no doubt about that. I had no doubt about that in my mind. And so the real question for me is just, can Democrats successfully fight to prevent this pick from going through? My thought and my initial, just my gut instinct is that no, they won't be able to successfully fight the Republicans. And unfortunately, I sadly believe that this pick will end up getting pushed through. If you need a way to fight that, I mean, the way to fight that is to try to, particularly if you live in a state where you have one of these Republican senators, particularly ones that are at any sort of risk of losing their seat, folks like Susan Collins, folks like Joni Ernst. Joni Ernst right now in recent polls, she was down a few points in two recent polls, have her down to her Democratic challenger, Teresa Greenfield in Iowa. And so I think that if you're living in Iowa, if you're in Maine there with Susan Collins, well, then what you can do is you need to be making phone calls to them. If you want to fight this pick, you need to be making phone calls, letting them know, I will not only not vote for you, I will actively work to have you removed from office. Scott Walters, shout out to Scott Walters. Oh, we got the whole family in the building tonight. I love it. It is a family affair up in here. This is my brother from another mother right here, Scott Walters. So this is my brother right here, y'all, as well. So Scott says they won't even try to fight it. Yeah, no, that's the sad, scary thing, is that honestly, I don't have that much faith in them to even really put up any kind of fight, any real fight whatsoever. I think that they're perfectly content using this. Now, one reason they might want to fight it is just to fight it to hold it off until after the election, because I think that they see it as an opportunity for the Democrats to scare enough people into voting for Joe, to go vote for Joe Biden. And so if they could hold off, if they can manage to hold off until after and fight them to hold them off until after the election, then maybe they can use that fear to get people out to vote, to say, hey, you got to vote if you want the Supreme Court. You don't want it turned over into Donald Trump's hands, even though it still might get turned. The Supreme Court pick will almost certainly be confirmed by Donald Trump, even if it's in the lame duck session. They would still use that tactic and use that strategy to scare people at least into voting for Joe Biden, and try to increase voter turnout that way. It can also have it could backfire as well, and that could rile up the Republican base even more to say we want. And honestly, if I'm being real, I think the Republicans are more energized about this, because it's the final, this could be the final nail in the coffin for things like the ACA and Roe v. Wade. And there's a very real chance of those things sort of being ruled against and repealed by the Supreme Court. Now, what I would argue is that we need a better democracy that doesn't allow a handful of unelected people to overturn our popular public policy. Like, if this is what people want, if people want the ACA, if they want those protections, and the majority of people want that, then they should have that in a sane democracy. But unfortunately, we have this sham of a democracy that allows everything to hinge on the health of an 87-year-old woman with cancer who's battling cancer. I mean, that is not a strong democracy, if you ask me. So it's really, unfortunately, I agree with Scott, unfortunately, that I don't think that they're going to put up much of a fight. If they do put up a fight, it will only be for the first half here and for this until the election, and then they could give a fuck what what ends up happening ultimately. Sorry, excuse my language there. So Let's Maybe says, well, there is a possibility the Arizona special election winner would take over immediately. Yeah, I'm not familiar with what's going on there with the Arizona special election. I'll have to look that up for why there is a what that's about. I don't know why I'm ignorant to that right now, but feel free to drop some more knowledge and why you feel like. Now, are you saying that if the Arizona special election winner was to be okay, so then maybe I get the sentiment there. Then what Let's maybe is referring to there is that maybe there's, in the event that a Democrat were to win the Arizona election, then you would then go to from 51 votes to only having 50 votes if they can remove that vote there, so that they couldn't do it after the election, and because that person won't have to wait until inauguration in January to take their seat. They'll take the seat immediately in the special election. So Jamiko, the producer, says Ro Khanna tweeted an idea of 18-year terms for Supreme Court justices, and someone in the replies mentioned putting it on a cycle to replace one every 2 years. Yeah, like I'm so down with that. Like that is perfect. Like that is beautiful. I love that. Like you got 9 justices now. I believe we could stand to expand the Supreme Court. At this point, we almost have to expand the Supreme Court, but that's another sort of discussion. We had that discussion out recently, actually, but I'm totally in support of like 18-year term limits on the Supreme Court. Like I'm cool with that. Like I don't need, why do we have these people getting lifetime appointments? That should not be a thing. Now, I'm sorry, but I'm all for people having, tenure, job security. I'm all for that. But there needs to be an age at which we say, no, you are going to be forced into retirement. You can go, you can live comfortably, you can retire, but you are not getting a lifetime appointment where you can literally die on this bench, and you're likely to die on this bench. Like that's an absurd system. In Canada, the age limit for a Supreme Court justice in Canada is 75 years old. After 75 years old, you're forced to retire in Canada. So, and they also have a running list that that a group of people compile, and the president, prime minister, whatever the hell they're called, prime minister, has to select from that list. I don't know if I feel great about that part of it. Honestly, I just think that we need to remove as much power from the Supreme Court as possible. Professor Samuel Moyne had a great interview on Katie Halper's show recently, and he talked about some of those ideas. And so I would love to see a more democratic Supreme Court in some way. And so Scott Walter says, exactly, they should be elected. Yeah, these are like unelected officials we're talking about here, who just, they get, decided through this executive branch, and now the president, just gets to pick these people. And we have these unelected officials that get to rule on policy and overturn policy that we all, essentially voted on. That's not democracy. Mark McKeever says, fuck it. If Dems win the presidency and Senate, stack the court. Yeah, like, honestly, I think that if they don't do it now, the Republicans will do it later. And so I do think that you can also, Professor Samuel Moyne, the law professor Samuel Moyne, who was on the Katie Halper show recently, he talked about a strategy that's being floated of packing the lower courts too. It doesn't have to just be the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court hears, far fewer cases than all of those the rest of the circuit in the lower courts. And so we could pack the lower courts as well. And they're just vacancies waiting to be filled. And that's what Trump's been so effective, and Mitch McConnell have been so effective at doing, is packing these, filling these vacancies that were left behind by Obama and Joe Biden. And so we can just continue to fill these vacancies on the lower courts. And also, I am totally cool with a court packing strategy as long as we're packing it. I don't want Joe Biden packing the courts. So let's be real here. I don't want Joe Biden packing the courts. If Joe Biden packs the courts, he's going to pack the courts with a bunch more centrist, economically conservative justices who are going to keep on being anti-labor and pro-corporate. And look, like even Justice Ginsburg and all of these justices, they're all like pro-corporate. There's no labor justices. There's no pro-labor justices there. And so if we're going to pack the Supreme Court, we need to pack the Supreme Court with actual, left leaning people at the very least, or straight up leftists. Shin says, put a socialist on the Supreme Court. Yes, exactly. Like that's what we need to balance, to counter the far right like extremists that Trump has been able to put on there. Brett Kavanaugh, this just like far right, you know, he's putting these very far right conservatives on there. There's already like Clarence Thomas is like Brett Kavanaugh is considered the swing vote now. After Amy Coney Barrett goes onto the court, Brett Kavanaugh will be considered the swing vote on the Supreme Court. So just let that sink in for you and see, you know, let that sink in. Brett Kavanaugh being the swing vote on the court. So we're in for a real rough time, and like that article says, there is a real chance that they can repeal the ACA through the courts, and as well as Roe v. Wade. And it's just it's really unfortunate that we have a system that's been set up that allows that to happen, that allows, you know, one president to decide things like that, essentially, and to overturn and overrule Democratic will. So Let's Maybe says, I read an article in that Feinstein. I don't know why I don't know her to pronounce it. I've said her name a million times before, and now I don't know how to pronounce her name anymore. Feinstein. So I read an article in that Feinstein was critiqued by even fellow Dems that she was too old to represent the party in these judiciary hearings. See Kavanaugh evidence. Yeah, like these people are like these dinosaurs that are in there mind you, Dianne Feinstein, she was a Dixiecrat. She flew the Confederate flag, like, while she was in office, like when while she was in office, like years ago. She was a Republican. She was a Confederate, like Democrat or something they call themselves, and these Dixiecrat type who flew the Confederate flag. So, and now she's a Democrat. She's like one of the wealthiest people in all of Congress, and she's absolutely she's just too disconnected from the base. I don't want to use ageism necessarily and say they're too old necessarily. Like Bernie's an old ass dude, and I was supporting Bernie. We got Bernie all over up here. Bernie was old, was an old ass dude. He would have been the oldest president. It's not necessarily their age; it's how disconnected they are with their constituency and the American people at large. And so I think that it's just that they're so disconnected from the reality of the American people that they don't deserve to be representing the party in these judiciary hearings. So Martin McKeever says Stein like dime. Okay. Yep. So Stein, Feinstein. Okay. Jamiko, the producer, says, guys, let's get the Patreon to $75 tonight to hide my failure of fifth grade math. Yeah, I love it. Yes, let's do that, y'all. Let's do that. All right, let's get it going. That's awesome. How off was Jumi there? That's hilarious. Thank you, though. Thank you, brother. I really appreciate that, though, man. Deeply appreciate it. So. Love the name too. I will have to talk about why that is the case offline there, or feel free to drop it in the comments there. All right. So please, yes, support the show. Patreon.com/radical democracy. Links in the description box below. So if you're like me, too lazy to type that in, just open up the description box below, click that link, and go and support the show. Thank you so dang much to our new Patreon supporters, Christina's son, Jamiko, the producer there, aka Brandon, IUK, Brandon. So shout out. Love the family. We got the whole family up in here. Scott's in the building. I love it. And you can always drop us a one-time tip. No need to sign up for an account or anything like that. One-time tip in place of a super chat. If you leave a comment with your tip, we'll read your comment out during the stream here or on the next live stream if for some reason we miss it, but we will try our best not to miss it. We got an eye out on those platforms. So if you leave us a tip with a comment, we'll read the comment out. Coffee.com/radical democracy. Link is also in the description box below. So please support us. We're waiting to enable the super chat feature, which we're so close to being able to enable. But in the meantime, while we wait on that, you can support us on Coffee. Right. So Shin says, what do you say to people who say that they should not be elected because they are supposed to be neutral and not partisan? So let me read that again. Hold on. Shin says, what do you say to people who say that they should not be elected because they are supposed to be neutral and not partisan? Oh, yeah, I got something to say to that. So what I say to that is that Who's neutral right now? Do you think that any Supreme Court justice is out here is neutral? You think that any person in the world is like nobody's neutral? You know, we all have to recognize that. It's like when they try to say like media folks shouldn't be neutral, you know, should need to be neutral. It's like that's you know, it's not realistic. Everybody has biases. We all have biases. And so I have biases. You have biases. We all do. There's nobody on this earth that doesn't. And so you can't be, they're known to be conservative justices because they have biases, clearly. So whether they're elected or chosen by somebody who is elected into a party, they're going to come with biases, and they're not going to be neutral. And our Supreme Court is totally to the right now. It's not neutral whatsoever. It's totally conservative right now. So if these were just a bunch of neutral folks, we wouldn't have to worry about that. Scott makes that point, and he says there is not one Supreme Court justice that is neutral. I totally agree. Exactly. Like, none of these folks are neutral. Not the ones that were selected by Democrats, not the ones that were selected by Republicans. They're not neutral. They all have biases, and we have to recognize what those biases are. And so, yeah, it's and recognize that that's an anti-democratic thing. It's not democratic to have a set of people who can change the law, you know, change the laws that we all vote on democratically. If we vote democratically to have these laws passed, if they can just overturn them in the courts, 9 people can overturn that. A handful of 5 people can overturn it. It doesn't even take 9 of them. Literally, just 5 of them can overturn it. That's not democracy. If 5 people can overturn the will of the people, that's not democracy. So. And they absolutely can do that with things like the ACA that we passed through an act of Congress. That's all of our elected officials getting together and passing this through Congress. And then the judiciary, the Supreme Court can totally block that from happening. So that's not democracy, and we shouldn't be okay with that, for sure. Jamiko says, that's my Patreon name until the fantasy footballs make me listener of the week again. Oh dear. Oh, that's awesome. All right, I like it though. I like it. Mark McKeever says Kamala is buying dinner. Kamali, I was like, whoa, Kamala is buying us dinner. I'm down for that. She got plenty of money from all them damn donors. She owes us some dinner, damn it. I wish Kamala would come buy us some dinner up in here. Yes. Tammy says, I hope so, Mark. LOL. I'm hungry. I know I'm starving. I did not eat. I haven't eaten anything like all day. I need to eat some food. So we'll keep pushing through the stream, and then we'll get some food. I promised we will feed super producer Tammy immediately following this show. Shin says, did you know that a lot of Democrats in Congress voted for Trump's federal judges? Yes. I mean, a lot the senators, Chuck Schumer has been totally complicit in this. And he keeps on making these garbage deals with Mitch McConnell where he just approves a string of these federal judges, like handfuls of these federal judges. And nobody is any the wiser. And they make these behind the scenes deals and stuff. And they're totally complicit in this. So yeah, there's been a ton of federal judges that have been voted on and in favor of by the Democrats, and they're not even making noise. They should be making way more noise and drawing people's attention to this. If they really do think that the courts that we're in danger of losing the courts in this way, they should absolutely show it by being more alarmed and not just being rubber stamps for Trump's nominees. Jamiko, the producer, says my Patreon avatar, that is. It's Brandon Ayuk, rookie wide receiver, or Ayuk, rookie wide receiver for the 49ers, wearing Michael Jackson's pinstripe suit from Smooth Criminal. Oh, Brandon, are you okay? Ah, damn. All right. I see you out there. I see you. That's good. That's good. So it's Brandon, are you okay? All right. I love it. I love it. I dig it. I dig it. Good stuff. Good stuff. Jumi, see, it's the wit. I wish I had that wit. All right. So that's Trump's SCOTUS pick there for you. Let's see what else is up here. What else we got to report on? Okay, this is a super quick one. Literally just super quick story here. Just want to say, noted this. This is noted. Make sure that we're paying attention and just clocking this. But real quick, here we go. From CNN Health, 200,000. I'll say that again. 200,000 people have died from COVID-19 in the US. That's more than the US battle deaths from 5 wars combined. So, I just wanted to make sure we noted this. This is a major milestone for the coronavirus. If folks remember back in at the start of the coronavirus, Trump was like, "Oh, if we keep it to 100,000 to 200,000 deaths, then that will be tremendous and great and amazing." And mind you, already that number was complete BS. When in the world do you ever say it's a good thing for 200,000 Americans to die in a single year? When the hell is that ever a good thing or something we should be proud of? So no, it already was BS. But even with that BS number that he threw out there, it's even worse than that, So he tried to hedge it so that it would sound like he had done good if he kept it to only 200,000 people dying. Actually, let's look at how some of the ways that they frame this, just to put those numbers into perspective. Let's take a look at some of the ways that they've helped us to try to put those numbers into perspective in this article here. So this from the CNN article again. It says US COVID-19 deaths are equal to having the September 11th attacks every single day for 66 straight days. Okay, so look at our response to 9/11. Look at what our national response was to 9/11. We went and we started pouring trillions of dollars into illegal wars that, happened, where we were killing countless people, and we've done the amount of people that have passed is equal to that a September 11th happening every single day for 66 straight days. Another way that they've put this is that since the first known US COVID-19 death on February 6th, an average of 858 plus deaths have been caused by the disease every single day. So since the very start, since the first known case of COVID-19, since the first known death from COVID-19 on February 6th, on average, 858 plus people have died every single day from COVID-19. Over 850 people every single day. So these were just some really stark numbers that I just wanted to make sure I call to our attention, just to note that this is horrific. These should not be anything to be happy or celebrate or be proud of in any way. We certainly could have done far better and fared far better if we had just taken basic measures, not just under Trump, but under Obama as well in past administrations, to prepare the way that we stockpile oil in this country and oil reserves at immense cost to the public. We stockpile barrels and barrels of oil that ultimately was worthless during this pandemic, was literally worthless during this pandemic. We stockpile that, but we didn't stockpile, thermometers, gloves, masks, ventilators. We didn't stockpile that. Why? Because it's not profitable to stockpile that. It's profitable to stockpile oil. It's not profitable to stockpile and to manufacture and stockpile medical supplies in preparation for the pandemics that we know will come. These are viruses have lived with human beings have lived amongst viruses from the beginning of humanity. We have lived amongst viruses. Throughout history, time and time again, these things come back and they hit us time and time again. And so it's not unexpected. These things aren't unexpected. They're not, and we're still, what are we doing right now? What are we doing today? We don't have the manufacturing capacity in this country to support enough masks. And there was a recent story that came out that was crazy that I wish I had brought that story into it. But a recent story came out that it broke, and this was a wild thing that I don't see getting covered nearly enough right now. People should be just furious about this. But there was an internal memo from the U.S. Postal Service was recently released, and somebody somehow whistle blew on it or something and passed it along to the press. And so they released this internal memo from the United States Postal Service, where they were ready back in March, they were ready to put forward a program where they were going to deliver to every single household in this country. They were going to deliver 5 free reusable masks back in March. In March, they were prepared. So the USPS they were geared up for it. They had the press release ready, and they were crediting the White House with helping. And the White House, Donald Trump and the White House decided not to do it, and they squashed it because their reason, they didn't want to create a panic. What do they really mean by that? They didn't want to panic the markets is what it was really about. They didn't want to panic the markets and cause any more of a stock market crash than was already caused at that time, essentially. And so you have Donald Trump in his administration blocking the USPS from just doing what they like. They didn't need his help in any damn way. They didn't need him to do anything but just not interfere. That's all he had to do. And he would have been credited with it. He would have gotten credit for being a part of the reason why every single US household got 5 free masks at the very beginning of the pandemic. And we all know now that the masks are pretty much the best defense that we have against this virus is the mask. And so against the spread of this disease. And so you're talking about, I mean, just think of how many lives could have been saved. You're talking about tens of thousands of lives, probably, possibly more. The US has 5% of the world's population. We have 25% of the world's COVID-19 deaths. So 5% of the world's, and I think it's actually 4% of the world's population, 24% of the world's COVID-19 deaths, which actually is worse because that's 6 times worse instead of just 5 times the rate of our, just 5 times disproportionate. It's actually 6 times more. So, if the numbers of COVID-19 deaths kept in line with our actual population rate, I mean, it would be, you're talking about, being essentially like 20% of what it is now. So we're talking about maybe 40,000 deaths, total instead of 200,000 maybe. So yeah, it's just it's just a wild thing that and it could have been, people could have been protected from it really early on. It was just a terrible thing that happened, and I'll try to cover it. I'll do another segment on it and cover that story and give it the attention that it deserves, because it needs to be called, it needs attention called to it, and people need to be aware of that this dude just endangered and put so many people's lives at risk by stopping the USPS from just doing what they were geared up and ready to do. All right, so just wanted to note that there. And yeah, all right, so let's keep pushing along to our next story here. You know what, if I'm being real, let me see what we got. What else we got? Mark McKeever says, if I remember right, this administration saying that the deaths being in the millions would have happened if they did nothing at all, and they're patting themselves on the back. What the fuck? Yeah, exactly. They did. They said, oh, Trump just came out recently and was like, it could have been millions if I had done nothing. Was that an option, to do nothing, to do literally nothing? Was that ever a freaking option? Who was going to do nothing? Nobody ever expected anyone to do nothing. It's like, just do the basic things that these other countries did. If we did just basic protections for people, kept people whole, continue to give people payments so that prop up the economy that way, so that people can stay home safely, be able to not be forced out of desperation into being forced into work or public places like that, in public spaces. So yeah, like as if to say, they just make up these numbers and like use these arbitrary numbers and like, oh, it could have been so much worse if we did nothing at all. So pat on the back. It's like, no. Doing nothing was never an option. What you did was still terrible and was not nearly enough. And it turns out it wasn't just like them not doing stuff, but like they impeded actual like help from getting to people. And so they were an actual like impediment, an obstacle to people getting the help that they needed. And so it's even more malicious than them just not doing anything. They actively worked to make the situation worse, really. And that's Trump, and that's all credit to Donald Trump and his administration there for that. All right, so let me take a quick look at. Okay. So, yeah, let me take just a quick look here. Sorry, folks. All right. Just deciding whether we want to forge ahead. We covered a lot today. And I am happy with all that we got to cover today already. So I'm thinking that we may cut the stream soon here. I have some more stories that I like to get to, but we can always get to those tomorrow or on Monday at worst. So yeah, I'm thinking just honestly, I'm hungry right now. I want to eat some food. And so I think I'm going to cut this stream a little bit. I think I'm going to, wind things down here, folks. So if you have any last comments, any thoughts, any questions, please put it in the comments now, and we'll wait. We'll, give a minute for those to roll in, if any. And if not, we will start to pack it on up. Right. Please, if you haven't done so already, please hit the like button, subscribe, share this out, leave a comment, leave your thoughts in the comments. We appreciate the support. Thank you so much to our new Patreon subscribers. That was awesome. Appreciate it. Deeply, deeply, deeply appreciate it. And shout out to Christina there once again, as a new commenter and supporter there. So that was amazing. And if you would like to support the show yourself, please do so by signing up on Patreon at patreon.com/radical democracy. If you sign up for our $5 tier or more, then you will be given access to our Discord server, where you'll get an invite link and you can come and chat with us, suggest news stories that you'd like to see covered on the show, just chat with the community, build solidarity, and build a left network. So please support us. Patreon.com/radical democracy. There are links in the description box below. And if you sign up for $5 or more, you will be sent an invite link to our Discord server, where you can join the community and come chat with us over there. And like I said, make suggestions to the show, and also, talk about news stories and just have discussion in there as well. So it's a fun place to be. And the more folks that we get in there, the more enjoyable it gets. And so, yeah, please join us over there. If you would like to just leave a one-time tip, you can do so by going to coffee.com/radical democracy, ko-fi.com/radical democracy. Links in this at the bottom of the description box below. So check that out. Support the show. We need your support. We need your help. We really appreciate it. We love you. Thank you to everyone for joining us today. We got through a bunch of stories, which I think was great. We made it through a bunch of stories. I think we got at least, 5, 6, 7, 8 stories in there. I mean, we crammed a lot in there. That was awesome. Managed to do it in about 2 hours time. And if I wasn't so hungry, I might have gone a little bit longer, but we got to eat, and Tammy needs to eat, even more importantly. So Shin says, what will you do personally if Trump rigs the election and stays in office? Like, personally, I'll be out there no chance, 0% chance I will hop on, I will drive, walk, whatever the hell I have to do down to DC, like Cornel West says, and I will be a part of the team of people that is on the front lines, physically removing whatever we got to do to remove from office, because that is, we've lost our democracy at that point. We've lost any semblance of a democracy that we have at that stage. So what the hell's the point? What are we doing? So as Cornel West says, if he's voted out, he's gonna go. He's got to go. So he will go if he gets voted out, and I will do whatever I have to do. I don't know what I'm allowed to say here on stream without having the Secret Service or NSA or whoever knocking down my damn door. So I'll be cautious, but just know that I will literally be out there in DC at the White House if Donald Trump refuses to move along, even if I don't care that it's for Joe Biden to replace him, even though I'm not a Joe Biden supporter here. I don't give a damn. That is unacceptable, and so I will personally be a part of the removal team there. So, or I'll just be getting murdered by cops or Secret Service there on camera somewhere, hopefully. So yeah, that's what I will personally do. I don't accept that. I honestly don't think that he will do that. Ryan Grimm tweeted out recently that it actually he didn't share any links to any like resources on this, so I couldn't confirm it. I did a search myself. I read through the like crosstabs of 2 recent polls that polled on a ton of issues, and I couldn't find that data, so I don't know where he's seeing this at, unfortunately. But Ryan Grimm recently tweeted out and said that that's the journalist from The Intercept, and I think he's also worked for TYT Investigates as well. And he said that polls there. He claimed that there were a lot of polls showing that when people talk about Donald Trump potentially not leaving office after the election, that it actually depresses voter turnout in the Democratic Party. So like Democratic voter turnout. So there's a chance, if Ryan Grimm is correct and this polling is correct, which I need to confirm. I can't say this is absolutely fact because I couldn't find confirmation of this. And lots of people were asking him for links to those polls because I would love to see the data myself. But he claims that there are polls that show that this could apparently backfire against the people, the Democratic Party and such. Talking about this stuff potentially might have the effect of actually depressing voter turnout. If people think that Trump's going to steal the election, then they think, well, I guess I shouldn't go vote because he's just going to steal it anyway. So I won't go vote. I won't bother voting if he's going to steal it anyway. So I'm trying to be cautious about using that kind of rhetoric. And I just want to find do some more research on that before I use that kind of rhetoric and push that narrative too much, because I don't want to have I don't want to necessarily backfire and then end up helping him, the dude, in the long run. So I don't know. Mark McKeever says, Tammy, time to call in for that pizza. Yeah, I wish. I think that like everywhere's closed like around here. We're it's like, I don't know. We close like it's 9:30 where we are. Everything's locked up. Nothing. So we'll see. We'll see what we eat. I don't know. We'll figure something out. Might have to be some I don't know. We'll figure that out. I promise we'll get our super producer. We will make sure our super producer gets fed. Yes. So thank you so much to everyone for being here tonight. Please, if you haven't done so already, I need you to just hit the like button immediately. Hit it right now. Smash the like button, as the cool kids say these days, and subscribe to the channel. And if you are on social media anywhere, share this out. Just hit the share button, share it out. And if you can afford to, support us where you see us scrolling down at the bottom there. Support us on Patreon and Coffee in whatever way you can. We really, really, really appreciate it. So happy we hit 10. We crossed the mark, 10 Patreon subscribers, major milestone. That's awesome. Next milestone is 100 Patreon subscribers. So we start the fight today for 100 Patreon subscribers, and I just can't wait to get there with y'all. Thank you so much to all of our community for all of your support. Deeply appreciated. We had a lot of fun in here yesterday and today. Had lots of good comments and engaging chat. Always love that. So thank you to everyone who joined and contributed in that way. Really appreciate all of you. I'm going to get out of here and go get some food. Unless we have any more comments we need to get to, then I can certainly stick around a little bit longer. But Tammy's giving me the nod, so I think we're all good. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us today. Luckily, I think we pulled out. This is one of our shorter streams, and I think we covered a lot in a shorter amount of time, which I'm really proud of. So I'm going to shut up now and go before I ruin all of that. All right, y'all. Peacing out. Do we? Bye, Shin. Bye, Jamiko. Bye. Well, I'll say hi to Jamiko when I walk out of my door here, but Bye to Mark McKeever and Shin and Christina and Let's Maybe and Scott, if you're still with us, and everybody else that commented and joined us today. G-Eek. Everybody gets nothing but love for all of y'all. So thank you so much. Peace out to everyone. Thanks for joining us today, and I will see you again soon, I hope. We will be back again with another episode soon. I can't say for certain, maybe tomorrow, but not certain about that. Actually, I got some plans for tomorrow, so not sure I'm going to get to an episode tomorrow. Doubt it. Probably on Monday will be our next episode, if I'm being real. Take weekends off, take breaks, folks. Don't overwork yourselves. Don't work too much. Got to take time to yourself. All right. Peace out, y'all. Peace.